On January 15, 2025, NATO took a significant step in its defense strategy by deploying Norwegian F-35 fighter jets stationed in Poland for the first time in response to a large-scale Russian attack on Ukraine. This event marked a pivotal moment in NATO's commitment to protecting its eastern member states amidst escalating tensions in the region. The Russian attack on Ukraine. On that day, Russia launched a coordinated assault on Ukraine involving a mixture of cruise missiles and drones targeting critical infrastructure across several regions including Kharkiv, Lviv, and Ivano-Frankivsk. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that Russia deployed 74 drones and numerous ballistic and cruise missiles. Despite Ukraine's defense efforts, which resulted in the interception of 30 missiles and 47 drones, significant damage was inflicted on energy facilities, deepening the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine during the harsh winter months. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky characterized the incident as a massive attack aimed at crippling Ukraine's energy supply, a tactic that has been a recurring feature of Russia's military strategy. The Kremlin, for its part, acknowledged its focus on targeting Ukrainian infrastructure, highlighting the ongoing conflict's detrimental impact on civilians. NATO's response. In light of the attack, NATO's Air Command confirmed the mobilization of 2 Norwegian F-35 jets stationed in Poland. This move was unprecedented as it represented the first time these jets were scrambled for active air defense of Polish airspace. NATO officials emphasized that this deployment underscored the alliance's commitment to securing its eastern flank and responding to the growing threats posed by Russian military actions. Poland facing increasing risks from near-border Russian activities, responded by heightening its military alertness. The Polish government announced the deployment of additional fighter jets and placed ground-based air defense systems and radar on high alert. The operational command of the Polish Armed Forces noted intense long-range aviation activity from Russia, reflecting the country's vigilance in safeguarding its airspace. Regional tensions and public sentiment. The situation in Poland had been tense in the weeks leading up to the January 15 attack. Polish authorities had scrambled fighter jets multiple times due to sightings of Russian drones and missiles infringing on Polish airspace. Prime Minister Donald Tusk had previously called for restraint in dealing with these violations. Yet public sentiment indicated a strong desire for a more aggressive response. A survey indicated that a majority of Poles supported shooting down Russian drones that entered their airspace during attacks on Ukraine. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski affirmed that Poland and its neighboring countries bore responsibility for protecting their airspace despite NATO's preference for caution in responding to perceived threats. This reflects the delicate balance between national sovereignty and collective security within the NATO framework. Implications for NATO and Eastern Europe. The January 15 incident signifies a noteworthy shift in NATO's defense posture, particularly regarding Eastern Europe. It highlights the alliance's readiness to respond decisively to threats and its commitment to collective defense principles, which dictate that an attack on one member is treated as an attack on all. As the conflict in Ukraine continues to unfold, the risks of spillover into NATO territories remain a significant concern. NATO's proactive measures, including the deployment of advanced fighter jets, demonstrate a strategic approach to deterrence and defense in an increasingly volatile regional landscape. The situation remains fluid, and NATO's actions will likely evolve in response to ongoing developments in the Ukraine conflict, as well as the broader geopolitical implications of Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. The deployment of Norwegian F-35s is just one of many steps the alliance is prepared to take to ensure the security and stability of its member states in the face of external threats. The event regarding NATO scrambling Norwegian fighter jets for the first time in response to a Russian attack on Ukraine presents several counterintuitive aspects that may not align with common perceptions or expectations about NATO's operational protocols and the geopolitical dynamics at play. 1. First-time engagement versus historical context. While NATO has a history of military readiness and response, the specific action of deploying Norwegian F-35s to protect Polish airspace is unprecedented. This could be surprising considering the continuous tension between NATO and Russia since the annexation of Crimea in 2014. One might expect that NATO would have previously deployed aircraft in defense of its eastern members, but this highlights a significant escalation in the perceived threat level from Russia, prompting an immediate and active response. 2. Collective defense principle versus individual responsibility. Despite NATO's collective defense principle, which asserts that an attack on one member is an attack on all, the situation reveals a nuanced reality. Polish officials acknowledged their responsibility for airspace protection, suggesting a degree of autonomy in national defense that seems at odds with the collective security framework. This duality raises questions about the reliability of NATO's collective response in real-time crises and the reliance on individual member states for immediate action. 3. Public sentiment versus government restraint. The Polish government's stance of exercising restraint in response to airspace violations contrasts sharply with public sentiment, where a significant majority supports aggressive actions such as shooting down intruding Russian drones. This disconnect between governmental policy and public opinion suggests a complex political landscape where leaders may prioritize diplomatic caution over popular demand for a more robust military response. For the escalation of military activity, the rapid increase in military readiness and deployments in response to a singular event, Russia's missile and drone attack, could imply an overreaction in some interpretations. However, it simultaneously reflects a calculated shift in NATO's strategic posture in Eastern Europe, moving from a reactive to a more proactive defense stance. This may seem counterintuitive, as one might expect a more measured approach given the historical context of NATO-Russia relations. 5. Nature of threats and response mechanisms. The use of drones and missiles by Russia to target Ukrainian infrastructure represents a modern form of warfare that blurs traditional lines of engagement. NATO's immediate scramble of fighter jets while demonstrating readiness also raises questions about the effectiveness of air defense against such asymmetrical threats. The reliance on high-tech aircraft for airspace defense against lower-tech threats like drones could be seen as a misalignment of military resources and strategic focus. 6. Regional implications of a global alliance. The situation emphasizes the localized nature of global defense alliances. While NATO operates under a unified command structure and collective defense agreements, the immediate reaction to regional threats reveals the complexity of how such alliances function in practice. Member states may prioritize their national interests and security concerns, which can complicate unified responses in crises. 7. Impact of domestic politics on military decisions. The Polish government's decisions regarding military readiness and public communications reflect the intersection of domestic politics and international military strategy. Leaders may be influenced by public opinion, which calls for a more aggressive stance against perceived threats, despite NATO's overarching strategies which may advocate for restraint. This dynamic can lead to unpredictable military responses based on internal political pressures rather than solely strategic calculations. In summary, the deployment of Norwegian F-35s in response to a Russian attack on Ukraine serves as a critical case study in understanding the evolving nature of international military alliances, the interplay between public sentiment and government action, and the complexities of modern warfare. Each of these counterintuitive elements illustrates the challenges NATO faces in maintaining cohesive strategies while responding to immediate security threats in a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. The report regarding NATO scrambling Norwegian F-35 fighter jets for the first time in response to a Russian attack on Ukraine is significant for several reasons that are often overlooked. 1. Historical significance of the deployment. The importance of this deployment cannot be understated. It marks a pivotal shift in NATO's operational posture towards a more proactive defense strategy, particularly in Eastern Europe. This is the first time Norwegian F-35s have been actively engaged in air defense operations over Poland, illustrating a deepening of military integration among NATO allies. This event signifies a potential change in the dynamics of NATO's collective defense obligations. suggesting a readiness to respond more decisively to perceived threats in real time rather than waiting for an attack on NATO territory to invoke Article 5. 2. Escalation of Russian aggression. The scale of the Russian assault on January 15 involving 74 drones and multiple missiles highlights a troubling trend of increasing aggression from Moscow. The attack targeted critical infrastructure in Ukraine, which not only aims to weaken Ukraine but risks destabilizing the entire region, including NATO member states. The fact that NATO is felt compelled to respond in such a manner indicates the seriousness of the threat and the potential for spillover effects should Russian aggression continue unchecked. 3. Public sentiment and political implications in Poland. While the Polish government has advised restraint in responding to airspace violations, public sentiment appears to lean towards a more aggressive stance, with surveys indicating support for shooting down Russian drones. This disconnect between government policy and public opinion could lead to significant political repercussions within Poland and may influence NATO's strategic decisions. It underlines the role of domestic politics in shaping foreign policy and military responses, which is often a nuanced aspect of such reports that may not receive extensive coverage. 4. NATO's eastern flank security concerns. The deployment of F-35 signifies NATO's commitment to securing its eastern flank amidst rising tensions. This is particularly relevant given the historical context of Eastern European nations feeling vulnerable to Russian military actions. The proactive measures taken by NATO, including Poland's heightened military readiness, reflect an acknowledgement of these vulnerabilities. It also showcases NATO's strategic shift from a reactive posture to a more forward-leaning approach to collective defense. Understanding this shift is crucial as it sets the stage for future military engagements and alliances. 5. Implications for NATO's collective defense principle. The report emphasizes the collective defense principle of NATO, where any attack on one member is considered an attack on all. This principle is what compels NATO to respond to threats even if they do not directly involve an attack on its territory. The deployment of fighter jets in response to airspace violations by Russia could set a precedent for how NATO responds to similar situations in the future, reinforcing the idea that the alliance will take proactive measures even when direct aggression is not evident. 6. Future of military engagement in Europe. The incident could serve as a bellwether for future military engagements in Europe. With increasing military activities near NATO borders, the potential for miscalculations or accidental escalations is heightened. NATO's response to this incident may inform future military strategies and engagements, as well as NATO's willingness to engage in direct confrontations with Russian forces if necessary. 7. Technological and tactical advancements. The involvement of F-35 fighter jets also highlights NATO's investment in advanced military technology and the role such capabilities play in modern warfare. The F-35, with its advanced stealth and sensor capabilities, represents a significant shift in air combat dynamics, which could influence how NATO conducts air defense operations. Understanding the implications of technological advancements in military strategy is essential for analyzing the future landscape of warfare in Europe. Conclusion. In summary, the deployment of Norwegian F-35s in response to Russian aggression is a multifaceted issue that touches on historical, political, and military dimensions. The implications of this event extend beyond the immediate military response, influencing NATO's future posture, regional security dynamics, and the interplay between public sentiment and government policy. Recognizing these layers of significance can provide a more comprehensive understanding of the evolving security landscape in Europe. 1. First deployment of Norwegian F-35s. The event on January 15, 2025 marked the first time NATO deployed Norwegian F-35 fighter jets stationed in Poland for active air defense. This action underscored NATO's commitment to its eastern members, particularly in light of escalating Russian military activity in the region. The deployment reflects a significant shift in NATO's operational readiness and its willingness to engage directly in air defense operations to protect member states from perceived threats. 2. Response to Russian aggression. The context of the deployment was a large-scale Russian attack on Ukraine that involved the use of drones and ballistic missiles targeting critical infrastructure. Ukraine's ability to intercept a significant number of these threats, 30 missiles and 47 drones, indicates the ongoing intensity of the conflict. The Russian strategy of targeting energy infrastructure during winter exacerbates the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, revealing the tactical nature of its aggression and the potential spillover effects on neighboring NATO countries. 3. Poland's military readiness and public sentiment. Poland's response involved not only the deployment of additional fighter jets but also heightened alert status for ground-based air defense systems. This indicates a proactive military posture in response to perceived threats from Russia. Furthermore, public sentiment in Poland appears to favor a more aggressive stance against Russian incursions, with a majority of Poles supporting the downing of Russian drones that enter Polish airspace. This reflects a societal consensus on the need for national defense and heightened vigilance against external threats. 4. Collective defense principle and regional security. NATO's collective defense principle remains a cornerstone of its strategy, where an attack on one member is considered an attack on all. This incident highlights the alliance's commitment to maintaining security in Eastern Europe amid rising tensions. The situation underscores the importance of cooperation among NATO members and the need for a unified response to threats, not only to ensure the security of Poland and its neighbors but also to deter further Russian aggression in the region. The interplay of national responsibility and collective security mechanisms is crucial in understanding NATO's approach to current geopolitical challenges. 1. The Cuban Missile Crisis 1962. This event marked a 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union over Soviet ballistic missiles deployed in Cuba. The U.S. discovered the missiles through reconnaissance flights and subsequently enforced a naval blockade. The crisis heightened Cold War tensions and brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. It demonstrated the importance of military readiness and collective defense, much like NATO's response to the Russian threats in the current context. 2. Operation Desert Storm 1991, following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. A coalition led by the United States launched Operation Desert Storm to liberate Kuwait and deter further aggression. This operation showcased the rapid deployment and coordination of military forces across multiple nations, similar to NATO's mobilization of forces in response to perceived threats from Russia. The operation highlighted the effectiveness of collective defense agreements and international coalitions in addressing regional conflicts. 3. The War in the Balkans 1990s. NATO's intervention in the Bosnian War and later Kosovo War represented a significant shift in the alliance's role from a purely defensive posture to an active engagement in humanitarian and peacekeeping efforts. The airstrikes against Serbian forces to protect ethnic Albanians in Kosovo in 1999 were a key moment in NATO's history, akin to its recent actions in Eastern Europe against Russian aggression. This intervention underscored the alliance's commitment to collective security and defense of its members and partners. The deployment of Norwegian F-35 fighter jets by NATO for the first time in response to a Russian attack on Ukraine marks a significant evolution in the alliance's military posture and regional security dynamics. As of January 2025, the situation in Eastern Europe remains tense and several future trends can be anticipated based on recent developments. 1. Increased military readiness and NATO presence. The activation of NATO air defenses, particularly in Eastern Europe, will likely lead to a permanent increase in military assets and readiness in the region. Member states, especially those bordering Russia and Ukraine, are expected to bolster their air and ground forces. This could involve more frequent joint exercises, enhanced surveillance capabilities, and the establishment of permanent bases to deter further aggression. 2. Strengthening of collective defense mechanisms. The situation underscores NATO's collective defense principle, where an attack on one is considered an attack on all. Future engagements and policies may lead to a reassessment of NATO's strategic framework, emphasizing rapid response forces and integrated defense systems. Member nations might increase their defense budgets to support these initiatives, leading to an overall enhancement of NATO's operational capabilities. 3. Heightened tensions with Russia. As NATO strengthens its eastern flank, Russia is likely to respond with aggressive posturing and military activities. This could manifest in increased military exercises near NATO borders, cyber operations, and potentially further incursions into the airspace of neighboring countries. The risk of miscalculations leading to conflicts will increase, necessitating robust communication channels to avoid unintended escalations. 4. Regional security alliances and partnerships. The conflict has prompted countries in Eastern Europe, particularly Poland and the Baltic states, to seek closer security ties not only with NATO but also among themselves. We may see the formation of stronger regional coalitions focused on collective defense, intelligence sharing, and infrastructure development to enhance resilience against Russian threats. 5. Focus on hybrid warfare and cybersecurity. Given the nature of modern conflicts, NATO will likely place greater emphasis on addressing hybrid threats, including disinformation campaigns and cyber warfare. Future strategies will include enhancing cybersecurity measures within NATO and member states, coupled with initiatives to counteract misinformation that seeks to undermine public confidence in democratic institutions. 6. Impact on global defense policies. The evolving situation in Europe may have ripple effects globally, prompting other nations, particularly in Asia and the Pacific, to reassess their defense postures in light of potential threats from authoritarian regimes. Countries like Japan and South Korea might increase their military cooperation with the US and NATO, leading to a more interconnected global defense network. 7. Increased defense spending. The events of January 2025 are likely to catalyze a broader trend of increased defense spending across NATO member states. Countries may reassess their military budgets, investing in advanced technologies such as drones, missile defense systems, and cyber capabilities to enhance their deterrence and defense mechanisms against potential threats. 8. Shift in public opinion and political landscape. Public sentiment in Eastern Europe has been shifting towards a more security-conscious stance. The support for military action against incursions into national airspace, as seen in Poland, could lead to political changes, with more hawkish leaders gaining popularity. This shift may result in stronger political mandates for defense-related policies. 9. Long-term strategic goals for NATO. In response to the ongoing conflicts, NATO will likely outline long-term strategic goals focusing on deterrence, defense, and diplomacy. The alliance may prioritize creating a comprehensive security framework that addresses both conventional and unconventional threats, alongside fostering diplomatic channels to manage tensions with Russia. 10. Potential for diplomatic resolutions. While the military response is crucial, there may also be simultaneous efforts towards diplomacy. Future negotiations could focus on arms control, conflict de-escalation, and establishing protocols for airspace violations. The effectiveness of these diplomatic efforts will depend on the willingness of both NATO and Russia to engage constructively. Conclusion. The deployment of Norwegian F-35s in response to Russian aggression signifies a pivotal moment in NATO's approach to collective security in Eastern Europe. As tensions escalate, the alliance's future will be characterized by increased military readiness, enhanced regional partnerships, and a multifaceted strategy to counter both conventional and hybrid threats. The path ahead will require balancing military strength with diplomatic initiatives to ensure stability and peace in a region fraught with uncertainty.